Dear friends, greetings. Today is December 31st, the last day of the 24th year. I will be with you for the next 3 hours of information. Iryna Uzlova and Igor Gavryshchak will be with you. We will tell you the latest information. It was very tasty, powerful, and beautiful, flying across the territory of the Russian Federation. The enemy has fired at us, Ukrainians, and it is not a fact, friends, that they will not repeat their attacks. So please be vigilant when you hear air raid warnings today, because health, life, and safety are first. Andrei Yermak responded to morning attack on Ukraine. Typical Russian terrorists. The Russian Federation conducted strikes on December 31st. Russians attacked Ukraine with missiles from Tu-22. The Ukrainian Air Force reported the threat of ballistic missile attacks in all Ukrainian regions, as well as the movement of attack drones. Explosions were heard in the morning. Rocket fragments fell in Kyiv's district. Missile attack on December 31st. Debris of an enemy air target fell in Kyiv's district. No damage. Debris was preliminarily recorded falling in the Darnetsky district of the capital. The debris fell on the roof of a private building. No fire or destruction, no casualties. The KCIA also noted that the air raid was still ongoing, but as of 9 o'clock, air raid alerts had already stopped throughout Ukraine. The Air Force reported the threat of ballistic missiles across Ukraine, and monitoring publics reported several high-speed missile launches. Unfortunately, Sumy region also suffered as the enemy traditionally shells this border region. As of 8:30 a.m. in Sumy region, the occupiers struck at the Shostka community, according to the regional military administration. Border situation, Russians carried out 6 attacks on the border areas. 6 explosions were recorded. Shostka and Sveska communities were shelled. FPV drones were fired at the Sveska community. The enemy launched a missile attack on the infrastructure of the Shostka community. In Sumy region, 12 buildings were damaged in Shostka. These are Putin's goals. 2 educational institutions, some infrastructure facilities were destroyed. We are hitting the enemy's legitimate military targets. The Russians were really shaking from the large-scale attacks last night. Happy holidays, non-dear. First of all, I would like to tell you that Vladikavkaz Airport has introduced a carpet plan. According to the so-called media there, the region is under attack by unmanned aerial vehicles. And the propaganda media adds that a day earlier, Tatarstan officials warned of possible drone attacks on New Year's Eve. A drone is shot down over a training ground in North Ossetia. Air Defense Forces shot down a drone over the Shalka training ground. No casualties. Since 4 in the morning, a drone alert has been declared in the regions. Vladikavkaz Airfield is closed for airplane arrivals and departures. Please remain calm, do not respond to provocations, and trust only verified information. Also, a massive fire and fuel spill occurred in the Smolensk region, and last night, Ukrainian drones attacked not only the occupied Crimea, but also Oryol and the Smolensk region. The target of the drones was an oil depot in Yartsevo. According to local residents, the first explosions began around 3:40 a.m. A dozen explosions were heard, after which a massive fire broke out in the area of the oil depot. They are trying to pay it off. The fire at the oil depot was confirmed by the head of the Yartsevo district, who said that Ukrainian UAVs attacked the fuel and energy complex facility, causing fires. The Smolensk region is not bordering Ukraine. It is separated from the Ukrainian territory by the Bryansk region and a kind of union country. Drone debris attacked Rosneft's oil depots in Yartsevo, Smolensk region of the Russian Federation, and a large-scale fire broke out there. Unmanned aerial vehicle wreckage fell on oil depot territory. As a result, fuel spills occurred and fuel and lubricants started to catch fire, according to local residents. The first explosions in the Smolensk region occurred at 3:40 a.m., and more than a dozen powerful explosions were heard. What's interesting is that they always say that the debris, I always say, if the debris strikes, detonate the depots like this, what will happen after the real ones arrive? Even the drones.
Навіть дронів. Тож вони ще постійно скиглять, що по них летять українські ракети паляниці і пекло вже вони всюди знаходять. А коли Storm Shadow, як то називав його...
And when combined attacks are launched, as our regular guest, Roman Svitin, says, with drones, missiles, and possibly other means, including bombing, we know that it is important that we target not only oil depots, but also refineries. And that is why it is so important that we target these targets without listening to warnings from Washington. We must take an example from Israel, which beats them with its own weapons and the weapons of its partners, and they do not get away with it because they love force. I want to remind you that these strikes on Russian oil depots were really serious. At the beginning of this year, there was a series of cascading strikes. We actually hit, as it may sound funny, the Jewish part of the Russian Federation. The outgoing Pentagon chief, Lloyd Austin, was very unhappy about these strikes. He was very alarmed by them. He said to the Ukrainian armed forces, listen, look for some other targets in the Russian Federation. Because oil refineries are not an important target, or how he explained it, but the point is that it really had an impact. And we know that the strikes on refineries in the European part of the Russian Federation led to a drop in capacity. And they turned to the so-called country of Belarus, to the Mozir refinery, to help them. And by the way, if Lukashenko behaves badly next year, it could become a legitimate target for the enemy. According to Reuters, and you're right, Igor, as a result of our powerful strikes at the beginning of this year, which can also be attributed to our success in January and February 2024, the capacity of the Russian oil refining industry decreased by at least 13 to 14% in terms of refineries. And all this goes to finance and the wallet of the Russian Federation, the so-called shadow, in fact, the obvious tanker fleet refineries. All this is Putin's wallet, through which he can finance his military machine, Lloyd's. Austin, I remember, was still worried that this would affect the price of oil on the world market. Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation should be doing it. The Russian Ministry of Defense said their air defense system shot down almost 7 dozen drones during a night attack. The Ministry of Defense of the aggressor country claims that on the night of Tuesday, December 31st, they had a festive atmosphere. We know how to organize any kind of festive events on the territory of the Russian Federation by phone. 68 drones allegedly destroyed by Russian Ministry of Defense over 7 regions. The Russians traditionally blamed us for the attack. According to Belousov's office, 25 drones were allegedly shot down in the Bryansk region, 17 over the temporarily occupied Crimea. The air defense system allegedly destroyed 1 drone each over Rostov, Kursk, and Kaluga regions. The governor of the Bryansk region said 19 Ukrainian kamikaze drones were shot down over the Bryansk region of Russia, and all attacks were allegedly repelled. All targets were destroyed. And later Bogomaz added that 6 more enemy drones, aircraft type, as they call them, were detected and destroyed by air defense forces. Over the Bryansk region, but given the attack on the oil depot in the Smolensk region, it is likely that many drones managed to slip through unnoticed. It was hot in Crimea. I want to tell you, and this is recognized by many military experts in the West, that in general, what happens in a full-scale war, meaning the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, remember how they rattled, how they said that their ships, their submarines, they would bomb Odessa. Let me remind you that the Ukrainian Defense Forces, the armed forces of Ukraine, have absolutely no fleet at all. And yet we managed to neutralize and paralyze the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, and its remnants are based in Novorossiysk. And Okamchira is a fitting name for them, Igor. According to Western media and our intelligence, 35% of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation went down to the cruiser Moscow. Military expert Alexander Muzienko estimates 37-38%. And somewhere Kobzon is singing on that Moscow, right? It is surprising that we are developing know-how that shocks Ukrainians. So does the world. These are such technical developments that the NATO army would have to ask us, what is Igor's point? He is saying that we are all well aware of the Magura V5 maritime drones, one of which we have been collecting for this year, and we are also very grateful to you, dear viewers, and you know that the results will not be long in coming. The soldiers of the Amid. On December 31st, 2024, the soldiers of the DIU Special Unit Group 13 decided that the year's results should be summed up in a good way. And for the first time in history, they hit an air target using a Magura V5 maritime strike drone equipped with missile weapons. The military of Ukraine used a Magura V5 maritime drone to destroy an air target. On December 31st, 2024, soldiers of the special unit of the well-known DIU Group 13 hit an air target for the first time in history using a Magura V5 marine drone equipped with missile weapons. Battle in the Black Sea, near Cape Tarkhankat, temporarily occupied Crimea. A Russian Mi-8 helicopter was destroyed by R-73 Sea Dragon missiles. Enemy helicopter hit by fire and reached airfield. The struggle continues. Our intelligence says, glory to Ukraine. Our intelligence says, glory to the heroes. Because many people thought that it was just one attack, and that's why it was so alarming in Crimea. But no, because there were also explosions in the area of temporarily occupied Sevastopol, in particular in Kozacha Bay, on the night of December 31st. Against the backdrop of drone attacks and the work of the Russian air defense. The Crimean Wind Telegram channel reported this, a reputable source in the temporarily occupied peninsula. The air defense systems of the Russian occupiers operate in the Cossack Bay, located 15 kilometers from the center of Sevastopol. Something was exploding near Sevastopol. Another very loud explosion in Sevastopol at 1:18 a.m. The explosions are coming from the sea. Zet Publics write that Sevastopol is attacked. Another explosion in Sevastopol. Everything is shaking, the subscribers report. The Krymsky Vetter publication said. Later, the channel added that there were reports of the destruction of a Russian Tor surface-to-air missile system in the Kozacha Bay area. Later, a representative of the occupation administration of Sevastopol said, according to preliminary information, one unmanned boat was destroyed. Later, the network showed a photo of explosions in the waters of Sevastopol. The photo was published again by Crimean Wind. Meanwhile, Zet Publics write that the shot allegedly shows the explosion of a maritime drone. According to the same Crimean Wind public. At about 2:30 in the morning, explosions were heard again in the area of Sevastopol after a certain lull. The network wrote that several helicopters had taken to the air. Later, Crimean Wind wrote that at 1:30 a.m., an explosion occurred in Sevastopol. By the way, I want to tell you that they say that this second attack, I think it was a combined attack, and therefore it was much more powerful. Moreover, in Sevastopol, there was an alarm in their bases and barracks, and all the soldiers, tin soldiers, scattered, "We will follow." Where did they run to, Igor? Swimming to Kobzon. As Roman Svitan said, they will do all the styles, breaststroke, crawl, butterfly, everything. They have already learned it. Do you think they are already preparing? Soldier and down.
Хіба тут вони якраз реалізують значення слова солдатик, але інакше, бо інакше вони не вміють. І ти знаєш, що, Ігоре, що
That Mishka Razvajayev, a Kremlin protege, is entertaining, and he spent the night and morning learning how to write posts on Telegram. Misha Razvajayev said their military had allegedly repelled a night attack. 4 air targets were shot down, and 2 unmanned boats were added near the coast. After that lull, there was a second attack. Another one of the Beks, Igor. There were already 2 in the morning. And it is also noteworthy that the frightened Razvajayev called on newcomers, who are from 800,000.
Ще прикметно, що переляканий Розважаєв закликав панаєків, яких за різними оцінками від 800,000 до мільйона.
Up to 1 million on the territory of the temporarily occupied Crimea, not to film or teach the work of air defense. Sevastopol has introduced a regime of restrictions on the use of pyrotechnic products. What are you doing? Are you celebrating, or is the war returning to your territory? With the exception of firecrackers, sparklers, and cold fire fountains, they can be used. For the use of other types of pyrotechnics, you will be fined. But it's not even about the fine, understand. By launching fireworks and salutes, you create false targets, complicate the work of the air defense system in the Black Sea Fleet. If you launch fireworks now, Razvajayev writes in simple slogans, you are helping the enemy. Razvajayev even made the last phrase a capsule so as not to use it and not to help the enemy. Razvajayev warns the occupiers in the temporarily occupied Crimea not to use fireworks, and we urge them to use them, help the enemy. How can you have a new year without a holiday? You have been waging war against us for 11 years. Why don't you celebrate? By the way, Belousov, who was mentioned in the news, has the same attitude as Sergei Shoigu, his predecessor. They are trying to pretend that everything is fine and that the Black Sea Fleet supposedly exists. By the way, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Minister of Attack, Andrei Belousov, inspected the organization of combat training of the Black Sea Fleet Marines at one of the training grounds of the Southern Military District.
Бо щонайменше 155-та та 810-та бригади морської піхоти уже розбивалися частіше, ніж...
Then Chornobyivka was a meme, both in the east of our country, in the battles for Avdiivka, and in Kursk. In particular, the 810th is following ingloriously in the footsteps of the 155th. But they demonstrated the Belus laboratory, where some training is being conducted. The head of the Russian Defense Ministry thanked the personnel of the Black Sea Fleet Marines for their courage and heroism during the so-called Joint Forces operation. He thanks you for not understanding anything. You know, when he says in any situation he doesn't understand, yeah, I understand, thank you. Why? Because Belousov is not a military man. Why did Putin appoint him defense minister? When Belousov became the head of the ministry, there was a cascade of detentions of various deputies of Shoigu, because there is multi-billion-dollar corruption there, and Putin actually retooled the entire economy into a military-industrial complex. Belousov is a man who has always been involved in the economy, so that all Russians work on their knees for the military-industrial complex. So this person knows absolutely nothing about military tactics or strategy, so he just stands there and thanks you. You mentioned the 155th and 810th Brigades, our soldiers, to use a very apt word, have repeatedly unwound these brigades, which is a very apt phrase, and indeed the 155th has been getting it. 810. Moreover, I want to tell you that yesterday, again in the Kursk region, the occupiers had a hard time again. The attack on the city of Lugov was reported on the Russian Telegram channel. The acting governor of the Kursk region, his name is Alexander Hinstein, also confirmed the attack on Lvov, accusing Ukraine of it. Yes, we hit military targets. No need to blame us. We do it officially, openly, and then officially report it to the general staff. According to him, emergency and utility services have been working at the site, and the situation is under control. However, a video of the aftermath of the arrival is being posted online, and there is significant damage. It shows a fire and damage to one of the buildings. And if you listen to the video, you can hear, "Guys, everyone to the bunker." A lot of people. He is also the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council. Andriy Kovalenko said he flew to the concentration. Actually, I think it's quite possible that Scalp or Storm Shadow missiles made in France and Britain can penetrate bunkers. Let me remind you that this is not the first time this has happened, both in Lvov and in the neighboring city in the Kursk region, Rilsk. These are the two hubs, the points where the enemy amasses forces and equipment to send them further to the battlefield. These strikes are not accidental, especially against the 8th and 10th Marine Brigade, which is based in the temporarily occupied Sevastopol. In the Crimean direction, after the first strike, this is the second time we are talking about Lvov, and earlier it was in Rilsk, they shouted that they had a mole. So they are giving up the moments of their accumulation because a large number of not only personnel but also officers are being eliminated. The enemy forces are several times larger. There are 50-60,000 people there, a hodgepodge. There are Akhmatists. There are DPRK people, by the way. We will talk more. The Pentagon has assessed how these DPRK fighters fight, and our fighters can already tell you that they are a massive target for our FPV drones and mortar launchers because they run around the field and shoot them like in a shooting range. But this does not mean that it is very easy. The Ukrainian Defense Forces have advanced. It's quite possible, because the deep state map and the analysts of this map have shown that we have managed to make tactical advances. This village of Kruglenka, it's located to the north of our positions, if you can call them positions. Because you know that, unlike in the east of our Ukraine, there is a maneuver war there, and there are no clear positions. This is an interesting nuance, because Z Public started writing that the 110th Brigade was retiring for rest. In fact, they are withdrawing because up to 50% of their personnel have been killed, irrecoverable losses, killed or seriously wounded. And they have, interestingly, Iryna withdrawn to the village of Plekhovo. If you look at the map, Plekhovo is to the east of our positions. But there is a nuance. That is, they officially say that we understand perfectly well that the rest, rotation, is a supplementary manning, once again, throwing in some quickly mobilized resources, and the average life expectancy of an occupier is around 20 days, and then he is gone. The settlement of Plekhovo is located in the gray zone, which means that it is not a settlement where they can easily rebuild themselves. No, this means that our mortar, our artillery, and other means can hit. And they want to be in time. First, they wanted to knock us out of the Kursk direction by the new year. Then we'll postpone it until February 1st, then until Trump's inauguration, but they can't do that at all, because Putin is not a strategist. And as we can see, he's not even a tactician, and they don't have much time to do anything. And we do have a hit on Lviv and an advance in Kursk, and I'm proposing it now. About Putin's failures and his expectations, which I hope will not come true with Trump's arrival, because our next guest is sure that assistance to Ukraine will not stop, and the bunker should not expect that January 20 will suddenly change something in a positive way for him. Political scientist Taras Zavarodny joins us now to talk about this. Mr. Taras, good to see you. Glory to Ukraine. Good afternoon, glory to the heroes. We are implementing our favorite tactic of attacking oil refineries in the Russian Federation, and we see that something is on fire in the Smolensk region. The Yartsevo district, a fuel and energy complex facility, was hit. A massive fire